Hey everyone, I'm Bruce and welcome to episode 1 of our nostalgic deep dive into the golden age of gaming, the 25 best old school games that defined the 80s. If you're an OG gamer who spent countless hours in front of glowing arcade cabinets or a curious newbie who wants to know what made the 80s so iconic, this episode is your ultimate time machine. Spoiler alert, it's going to be all about pixels, high scores, and unskippable game over screens. The 1980s were the birthplace of legends. Super Mario Bros., Pac-Man, Tetris, and even a blocky orange guy named Bert. It was a decade where gaming was a cultural revolution. Back then, you didn't just play games, you lived them. So, grab your joystick, tune into some 8-bit background music, and let's hit start on this journey down memory lane. Oh, and don't forget to like this video, leave a comment about your favorite 80s game, and subscribe to the channel for more episodes. Trust me, we've got a lot more gaming history coming your way. Super Mario Bros. Let's jump right into the game that made plumbing look like the coolest profession ever. Super Mario Bros., released during 1985, was the game that saved the entire gaming industry after the devastating crash of 1983. Talk about a mushroom-powered comeback. In this groundbreaking adventure, you play as Mario, or Luigi if you're the eternal second player, two Italian plumbers who somehow end up in the magical Mushroom Kingdom. Their mission? To rescue Princess Toadstool from the clutches of the spiky-shelled menace Bowser. Players run and jump through vibrant levels filled with quirky enemies like Goombas, angry mushrooms with feet, and Koopa Troopas, turtles with an attitude problem. The game introduced power-ups that became iconic. The Super Mushroom for size changing, Fire Flowers for throwing fireballs, and the Star for temporary invincibility. The controls were simple enough for anyone to pick up, but mastering the precise jumps and timing required serious skill. The game's success was astronomical. It dominated the gaming charts for nearly 3 decades and sold millions of copies. The franchise went on to spawn over 200 games and became a cultural phenomenon worth billions. Not bad for a couple of plumbers who took a wrong turn in Brooklyn, right? Contra. Released in 1987 for arcades and later ported to the NES in 1988, Contra set the gaming world on fire with its intense action and cooperative gameplay. In this adventure, you play as Bill Riser or Lance Bean, two muscle-bound commandos sent to the Galaga archipelago to stop the evil Red Falcon organization from taking over the world. Little do they know, they're about to uncover an alien conspiracy that threatens all of humanity. Talk about a bad day at the office. The gameplay is pure, unadulterated action. You'll run, jump, and shoot your way through diverse environments, from dense jungles to high-tech bases. But don't get cocky. One hit, and you're toast. With only 3 lives to start and a one-hit death system, you'll need lightning-fast reflexes and nerves of steel to make it through alive. But fear not, brave soldier. The infamous Konami code will grant you 30 lives, giving you a fighting chance against the alien onslaught. Contra's weapon system was a game-changer. While you start with a basic rifle, power-ups allow you to upgrade to more devastating arsenals. The spread gun, which fired multiple bullets in a wide arc, was the ultimate alien-slaying tool, and has become iconic in gaming history. Mike Tyson's Punchout. Step into the ring with one of the most iconic boxing games ever created, released in 1987 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Revolutionized sports gaming by turning boxing into an intricate puzzle of pattern recognition and precise timing. You play as Little Mac, a 17-year-old underdog from the Bronx, fighting his way through a colorful cast of increasingly challenging opponents. The gameplay mechanics are deceptively simple but incredibly deep. Little Mac's arsenal includes left and right jabs, body blows, and the coveted star-powered uppercut that you earn through perfectly timed counterpunches. Each opponent has patterns and tells that players must study and exploit, making every bout feel like solving an intricate puzzle. Nintendo paid $50,000 for a 3-year license to use Tyson's likeness. A brilliant move considering he would soon become the heavyweight champion. The game went on to sell over 2 million copies in North America by 1988, making it one of only 2 NES games to achieve this milestone that year. The game's influence on gaming culture cannot be overstated. Its character designs, from the glass-jawed Glass Joe to the mysterious Great Tiger, have become legendary. Now let's get into the story of gaming's first true superstar, the pizza-shaped hero who made maze running cool before it was cool. Released in 1980 by Namco, Pac-Man chomped its way into arcade history and became a cultural phenomenon that transcended gaming itself. The premise is beautifully simple. Guide our yellow friend through a maze while gobbling up dots and avoiding 4 colorful ghosts: Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde, or as I like to call them, the OG squad goals. Each ghost has its own personality and movement pattern. Blinky's the aggressive one who chases you directly, Pinky tries to ambush you, Inky's movement is a wild card, and Clyde, well, let's just say he's doing his best. In an era dominated by space shooters and war games, creator Toru Iwatani wanted to make something that would attract women to arcades. The inspiration? A pizza with a slice missing. The result was gaming's first mascot and the birth of casual gaming as we know it. The gameplay is a masterclass in elegant design. Power pellets in the corners temporarily turn the tables, allowing Pac-Man to chase and eat the now vulnerable blue ghosts. The increasing difficulty, predictable yet challenging ghost behavior, and the race for high scores created an addictive loop that kept players feeding quarters into machines. Fun fact, the game was so popular that it caused a shortage of 100 yen coins in Japan. Pac-Man's influence on pop culture was unprecedented. It spawned merchandise, a Saturday morning cartoon, a hit pop song, Pac-Man Fever, and even became the first video game character to appear on the cover of Time magazine. The game generated over $2.5 billion in quarters by the 1990s, making it the highest-grossing video game of all time for many years. Tetris. From Russia with blocks. Tetris, the ultimate proof that simplicity is genius, was created by Soviet software engineer Alexei Pajitnov in 1984 while working at the Soviet Academy of Sciences. Talk about making procrastination productive. The concept is elegantly simple. Arrange falling geometric pieces, called tetraminos, to create complete lines that disappear. Sounds easy, right? Well, tell that to anyone who's ever muttered just one more game at 3 a.m. The game's addictive nature was so powerful that it was dubbed Tetris effect, when players would see falling blocks in their dreams or visualize fitting real-world objects together like Tetris pieces. Finally, a scientific explanation for rearranging the fridge. The controls couldn't be simpler: move, rotate, and drop blocks. But mastering the game requires spatial awareness, quick thinking, and the ability to plan several moves ahead. It's like chess, but with more panic and Russian folk music. The game's journey to worldwide fame is as twisted as a badly played Tetris board. After being discovered by Western publishers, it sparked an intense legal battle that involved Nintendo, Atari, and even the Soviet government. When it finally landed on the Game Boy in 1989, it became the killer app that helped sell over 35 million units of the handheld console. The marriage of Tetris and Game Boy was so perfect, it made other gaming couples look bad. The genius of Tetris lies in its universal appeal. It transcends language, culture, and gaming experience. The game mechanics tap into our basic human desire for order and completion. There's something deeply satisfying about fitting those pieces together perfectly and watching lines disappear. It's like Marie Kondo's dream game. Donkey Kong. The tale of gaming's most famous ape began in 1981, when a young Shigeru Miyamoto faced a fascinating challenge at Nintendo. After their arcade game Radar Scope flopped in North America, Miyamoto was tasked with creating something new. Originally planned as a Popeye game, licensing issues forced him to create original characters, and boy did that work out well. The game's premise is delightfully simple. A giant ape named Donkey Kong has kidnapped Pauline, the original damsel in distress, and it's up to Jumpman, later known as Mario, to save her. As a carpenter scaling construction sites while dodging barrels and fireballs, players experienced the first true platforming game with jumping mechanics. It introduced multiple levels in a single game, platforming mechanics, and most importantly, a connection between story and gameplay, features that were unheard of in an era dominated by maze games and space shooters. The game was so challenging that it had no official ending due to a programming glitch making level 22 impossible to complete. The financial impact was staggering. The arcade version earned Nintendo $180 million in 1982 alone, selling 60,000 machines across the US. Add another $4 billion from various console ports, and you've got yourself a banana-sized success story. The game rescued Nintendo of America from financial crisis and established the company as a major player in the gaming industry. The name itself has an amusing origin story. Kong came from King Kong, while donkey was chosen from a Japanese-English dictionary where it apparently meant stupid. Not the most flattering origin for gaming's most famous primate, but hey, it stuck. The game's success launched two of gaming's most iconic franchises, Mario and Donkey Kong, and revolutionized what video games could be, paving the way for the industry's future. The Legend of Zelda, 1986. In a world where most games followed linear paths, The Legend of Zelda burst onto the scene in February 1986, revolutionizing gaming with its groundbreaking open-world design and epic fantasy adventure. Created by the visionary duo Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka, the game emerged from a beautiful blend of childhood inspiration. Miyamoto wanted to recreate the thrill of exploring countryside caves from his youth, while Tezuka, inspired by The Lord of the Rings, infused the game with rich fantasy elements. The story follows Link, our green-clad hero, on his quest through the magical kingdom of Hyrule to collect 8 fragments of the Triforce of Wisdom and rescue Princess Zelda from the evil Ganon. Fun fact, Princess Zelda's name was inspired by Zelda Fitzgerald, whom Miyamoto viewed as the epitome of a fair maiden. It was the first home console game in the US to feature an internal battery for saving progress, eliminating the frustrating password systems of the era. The game's expansive 128 kilobyte size pushed the boundaries of what was possible in gaming at the time. The impact was immediate and lasting. The game sold a staggering 1 million copies on its first day in Japan. By 1990, it had sold over 3 million cartridges in the United States alone, eventually reaching 6.51 million copies worldwide. The game's success spawned a franchise that would go on to sell more than 150 million copies across all titles. The Legend of Zelda's influence on gaming cannot be overstated. It pioneered non-linear gameplay, encouraging players to think strategically about their next move, rather than following a predetermined path. Miyamoto even encouraged players to communicate with each other to discover the game's many secrets, creating a new form of gaming communication that would later inspire games like Animal Crossing. Prince of Persia. In 1989, a young programmer named Jordan Mechner revolutionized the gaming world with Prince of Persia, a game that would go on to define a genre and inspire generations of developers. Set in ancient Persia, this groundbreaking title introduced players to a nameless hero on a quest to save the Sultan's daughter from the evil vizier Jafar. Mechner used a technique called rotoscoping, filming his brother performing various movements and then tracing over the footage to create fluid, lifelike character animations. The result was nothing short of magical for its time. Players weren't controlling blocky figures, but guiding a character that moved with unprecedented realism. Players had to navigate treacherous dungeons filled with spike traps, bottomless pits, and guillotines, all while battling guards with a unique sword-fighting system. One of the game's most innovative features was its 60-minute time limit. Players had to complete the entire game within an hour, adding a sense of urgency to the adventure. This clever design choice not only increased the challenge, but also enhanced the narrative urgency of saving the princess. Prince of Persia's influence on the gaming industry cannot be overstated. It set new standards for animation and gameplay mechanics, inspiring countless titles across various genres. The game's DNA can be found in modern classics like Assassin's Creed, Tomb Raider, and Uncharted, all of which owe a debt to the prince's fluid movements and acrobatic prowess. Elite. In September 1984, from a humble office in Cambridge, David Braben and Ian Bell unleashed a revolutionary space trading game that would change gaming forever. Elite wasn't just another arcade shooter. It was the first true open-world space simulator that gave players unprecedented freedom to forge their own path among the stars. Players start as Commander Jameson with a basic Cobra Mark III ship and just 100 credits to their name. From these humble beginnings, pilots could pursue various careers including trading, bounty hunting, piracy, military missions, and even asteroid mining. Every credit earned could be invested in ship upgrades like better weapons, increased cargo capacity, or automated docking systems. Using just 22 kilobytes of memory, Less than a modern email, the game featured revolutionary wireframe 3D graphics with hidden line removal. The game's vast universe of 8 galaxies containing 256 planets each was generated through clever procedural generation, creating unique worlds without requiring additional memory. The gameplay offered unprecedented freedom and moral choices. Players could choose to be legitimate traders or risk everything as drug runners and pirates. There was no defined end goal or way to win. It was purely about carving your own story in this vast universe. The combat ranking system, from harmless to the coveted elite status, gave players a sense of progression and achievement. Super Mario Bros. 3. The curtain rises on what many consider the greatest platformer of the 80s. Released in Japan in 1988, Super Mario Bros. 3 was more than a sequel. It was a theatrical masterpiece. In this epic adventure, Bowser and his 7 Koopalings have taken over the Mushroom World, transforming each kingdom's ruler with stolen magic wands. Our mustachioed heroes must traverse 8 distinct worlds to save Princess Toadstool and restore peace. The game introduced the now iconic world map system, allowing players to choose their path through the game's 88 levels, nearly triple the content of the original. Each world brought new themes, from desert pyramids to giant-sized kingdoms, setting a template that platformers would follow for decades. The game's power-up system expanded Mario's abilities dramatically. The Super Leaf transformed Mario into Raccoon Mario, granting the power of flight and tail-whipping abilities. Other suits like the Tanuki, Frog, and Hammer suits gave players unprecedented strategic options. The technical achievements were equally impressive, especially considering the hardware limitations. Using just 22 kilobytes of memory, the developers created a vast universe with revolutionary wireframe 3D graphics. The game's success was astronomical, becoming the best-selling standalone NES game with over 17 million copies sold worldwide. Defender. Created by Eugene Jarvis and Sam Dicker at Williams Electronics, this side-scrolling shooter transformed from a simple Space Invaders clone into something far more ambitious. The game's premise is elegantly brutal. Pilot a spaceship to protect helpless humanoids from alien abduction. If the aliens successfully kidnap all humans, the planet explodes and transforms all enemies into deadly mutants, a scenario few players could survive for more than seconds. It introduced the first-ever minimap in gaming history, allowing players to track enemies across its scrolling landscape. The control scheme was unprecedented, featuring 5 buttons and a joystick, which initially scared arcade operators who feared it might be too complex for casual players. The game's technical achievements were remarkable for its time. Using just 22 kilobytes of memory, the developers created a vast universe with revolutionary wireframe graphics and smooth scrolling mechanics. The gameplay was enhanced by dynamic sound effects and an iconic soundtrack that contributed to the overall immersive experience. Defender's success was astronomical. It became one of the highest-grossing arcade games in history, earning Williams Electronics a staggering $1 billion during the golden age of arcades. The game sold over 55,000 units and became the company's best-selling title. Players became so dedicated that competitive playing for extended sessions became popular. Mario Suarez from Atlantic City made headlines by playing for over 21.5 hours straight at the Claridge Casino Hotel in 1982. The game even spawned the first Twin Galaxies video game contest, where Rick Smith achieved a score of 33,013,200 over 38 hours. Dungeon Master. Released in 1987, Dungeon Master revolutionized the role-playing video game genre with its groundbreaking pseudo-3D first-person perspective and real-time gameplay mechanics. Created by FTL Games, this title would go on to influence both RPGs and first-person shooters for decades to come. In this immersive dungeon crawler, players guide 4 champions through treacherous dungeons on a quest to recover the magical fire staff and defeat the evil Lord Chaos. The story follows Theron, an apprentice tasked with resurrecting these champions from magical mirrors and leading them to victory. The game introduced real-time combat, dynamic lighting, and environmental sound effects that would alert players to nearby creatures. The spellcasting system was particularly ingenious, requiring players to learn specific rune combinations that represented different magical effects. The game broke new ground with its skill progression system, abandoning traditional experience points in favor of a learn-by-doing approach, where characters improved abilities through actual use. This system would later inspire major franchises like The Elder Scrolls. Dungeon Master's influence on gaming cannot be overstated. It effectively established the template for both Western RPGs and first-person shooters, making it arguably the second most influential game after D&D itself. Its innovative inventory system, featuring a grid-based layout and paper doll equipment interface, became industry standards that are still used in games today. Starflight. Binary Systems and Electronic Arts unleashed Starflight upon the gaming world, a groundbreaking space exploration game that would influence the genre for decades to come. Set in the year 4620, this sci-fi sandbox puts you in the captain's chair of a starship, tasked with exploring a vast galaxy teeming with mystery and danger. With 270 star systems and roughly 800 planets to explore, players could chart their own course through the cosmos. Want to be a peaceful explorer? Go for it. Prefer to be a ruthless space pirate? The galaxy's your oyster. This open-ended gameplay was a revelation in an era dominated by linear experiences. The game's technical achievements were nothing short of miraculous for its time. Each planet was procedurally generated, complete with unique terrain, climate zones, weather, and even alien life forms. Starflight wasn't just about exploration, though. It seamlessly combined elements of role-playing, strategy, and resource management. Players had to carefully manage their crew, each member with distinct skills that could be improved over time. Mine for resources, trade with alien races, and upgrade your ship. Speaking of aliens, Starflight's approach to extraterrestrial encounters was groundbreaking. Diplomacy was often the key to success, as blasting your way through the galaxy wasn't always the best strategy. Perhaps most impressive was Starflight's narrative ambition. As players explored the galaxy, they slowly uncovered a deeper plot involving the mysterious flaring of stars that threatened all life. The game's conclusion featured a mind-bending twist that forced players to question their actions throughout the game, a narrative technique that would later influence titles like Mass Effect. Space Invaders. Created by Tomohiro Nishikado in 1978, the game emerged during the golden age of arcade gaming, drawing inspiration from Star Wars, The War of the Worlds, and earlier games like Breakout. The gameplay mechanics were all about players controlling a laser cannon, defending Earth from waves of descending aliens while taking cover behind destructible barriers. As players destroyed more aliens, the remaining invaders moved faster, creating an intense and addictive gameplay loop. Nishikado developed a groundbreaking hardware sprite system that allowed individual objects to move independently on screen, pushing the boundaries of contemporary technology. Space Invaders' success was unprecedented. In Japan, the game's popularity was so immense that it caused a shortage of 100 yen coins, forcing the government to quadruple the production of the currency. The game's innovative scoring system and leaderboard mechanics created a new culture of competitive gaming, laying the groundwork for what would eventually become esports. The cultural impact extended far beyond gaming. Space Invaders transcended its arcade origins to become a cultural icon, with its distinctive alien designs becoming instantly recognizable symbols that influenced fashion, merchandise, and popular media. Phantasy Star. Phantasy Star's story follows Alice Landale, a young woman seeking revenge against the tyrannical King Lassic for murdering her brother Nero. Breaking convention for its time, the game featured a female protagonist, designed by Reiko Kodama to appeal to both male and female players. Alice's quest spans 3 planets in the Algol star system, joined by an unlikely team including Mayal the Muscat, Odin the Warrior, and Noah the Wizard. Released in 1987, just 2 days after Final Fantasy, this game pushed the Master System to its limits. It featured groundbreaking elements like smooth-scrolling 3D dungeons, animated battle sequences, and a massive 4-megabit cartridge with battery-backed save functionality. The gameplay merged traditional turn-based combat with innovative features. Each character had weapon types, and players could purchase or find equipment while exploring the vast world. The game's blend of fantasy and sci-fi elements was inspired by Star Wars, featuring everything from lightsabers to spaceships. It was the first RPG to break out of the Dragon Quest D&D mold by introducing sci-fi elements. As the most expensive Master System game at $80, it still managed to become a commercial success. The game received widespread acclaim for its vivid graphics, animation, and ambitious storytelling, with Electronic Game Player calling it a visual tour de force. Maniac Mansion. Created by the dynamic duo of Ron Gilbert and Gary Winnick, this quirky point-and-click adventure set in a bizarre haunted mansion would go on to influence an entire genre. The game's premise is delightfully campy. Teenage protagonist Dave Miller must rescue his girlfriend Sandy from the clutches of the mad scientist Dr. Fred Edison, whose mind has been enslaved by a sentient meteor. Players choose 2 additional characters from a roster of 6 skilled teams to accompany Dave on his rescue mission. In 1987, Gilbert and Winnick, frustrated with the text parsers of earlier adventure games, developed a point-and-click system using a menu of verbs at the bottom of the screen. This SCUM, script creation utility for Maniac Mansion engine, would go on to power many of LucasArts' most beloved adventure titles. With multiple playable characters, Maniac Mansion offered unprecedented replay value. The game boasted 5 different endings, depending on which characters were chosen and how players navigated the mansion's many perils. Its humorous tone, combo of horror movie cliches with sardonic wit, set a new standard for video game storytelling. The game's success established Lucasfilm Games as a serious contender in the adventure game market, rivaling giants like Sierra Online. Perhaps most importantly, Maniac Mansion proved that video games could be a valid storytelling medium. As noted by writer Orson Scott Card, the game was a step toward computer games becoming a valid storytelling art. Its legacy lives on not only in its direct sequel, Day of the Tentacle, but in countless adventure games that followed in its footsteps. Galaga. Released by Namco in 1981, Galaga was a sequel to Galaxian, and it took everything that made its predecessor great and elevated it to new heights. In this space shooter, players control a starship tasked with defending against waves of alien invaders. Unlike other shooters of the era, enemies don't start in formation but instead swoop in from the sides of the screen in choreographed patterns before taking their positions. The game's most revolutionary feature was the dual fighter mechanic. When a boss Galaga captures your ship with its tractor beam, you can rescue it by destroying the boss, creating a dual fighter with double the firepower. Galaga's success was astronomical. In Japan, it ranked as the 6th highest grossing arcade game of 1981 and 3rd in 1982. In North America, it maintained its popularity on sales charts from 1980 to 1987. The technical achievements were impressive for 1981, featuring detailed sprites, smooth animations, and memorable sound effects. The game introduced challenge stages between levels, where players could earn bonus points by shooting enemies in formation without taking damage. Ms. Pac-Man. Originally conceived as an enhancement kit called Crazy Auto by General Computer Corporation, this game underwent several name changes before finally settling on Ms. Pac-Man. The development process took just 2 weeks to transform from Crazy Auto to the final product, with the last name changes occurring within 72 hours of production. Released in 1982, this game became one of the most successful arcade games of its era, with over 3.5 million units sold. The ghosts featured semi-random movement patterns, preventing players from using memorized patterns to complete levels. The bonus fruits now bounced around the maze rather than appearing in fixed locations, adding an extra layer of challenge and unpredictability. Its popularity was particularly noteworthy for attracting a broader demographic to gaming, especially female players, during a time when the industry was heavily male-dominated. The game also featured intermission cutscenes telling the love story between Ms. Pac-Man and Pac-Man, making it one of the first games to use cutscenes for storytelling. Ms. Pac-Man's influence extends beyond gaming, serving as a symbol of empowerment and representation for women in the gaming industry. Paradroid. This next game is Andrew Braybrook and Graftgold's work that takes us to a fleet of spaceships overrun by hostile robots. Here, players control a prototype influence device tasked with neutralizing the mechanical menace. What made Paradroid truly innovative was its gameplay mechanic. The ability to take control of enemy droids through a challenging minigame involving circuit diagrams and logic gates. The game's top-down perspective reveals a massive spaceship consisting of 20 decks and over 400 screens. Each droid, including the player, is represented by a circle with a 3-digit number indicating its power level. This simple yet effective visual design allowed for complex strategic gameplay within the C64's limited memory. Paradroid's influence on gaming was significant. It received widespread critical acclaim, with Zap! 64 magazine awarding it a near-perfect 98% score and hailing it as the classic shoot 'em up. The game's success led to multiple versions and remakes, including Paradroid 90 for the Amiga and Atari ST. Players had to carefully choose which droids to take over, managing limited control time while navigating the ship's complex layout. The circuit transfer minigame added a unique puzzle element, allowing skilled players to overcome more powerful opponents through clever manipulation of logic gates. Braybrook's attention to detail and innovative design choices created an immersive atmosphere rarely seen in games of that era. The lack of music was compensated by atmospheric sound effects, including an eerie background hum that added to the game's tense, sci-fi ambiance. SimCity. In SimCity, players take on the role of a mayor tasked with creating and managing a city. The game's objective is to develop residential, commercial, and industrial areas, build infrastructure, and collect taxes to further develop the city. What made SimCity truly innovative was its open-ended gameplay with no defined win condition, a concept that initially made it difficult for Wright to find a publisher. It sold 300,000 units for personal computers and nearly 2 million units for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. SimCity's popularity led to its release on multiple platforms, including a significant revision for the SNES in 1991 with Nintendo's involvement. It spawned numerous sequels and spin-offs, including the highly successful The Sims franchise. The game's educational value was also recognized, as it helped players understand urban planning, politics, and economics. The game's influence extended beyond entertainment. Many urban and transit planners, architects, government officials, and activists credit SimCity as their first exposure to city planning concepts. However, the game has also faced criticism for oversimplifying urban issues and not accurately reflecting real-world urban planning challenges. The franchise's enduring popularity and influence demonstrate the lasting impact of Wright's innovative concept on both the gaming industry and urban planning education. Outrun. Buckle up and hit the road with Outrun, the revolutionary arcade racing game that sped onto the scene in 1986. Developed by Sega's AM2 division and masterminded by Yu Suzuki, Outrun was a high-octane journey that redefined the genre. Outrun put players behind the wheel of a Ferrari Testarossa Spider, cruising down sun-soaked highways with a blonde passenger by your side. What made it truly groundbreaking was its innovative, choose-your-own-adventure style branching paths. At each checkpoint, players could select their route, leading to one of 5 possible endings. The game's technical achievements were nothing short of miraculous for its time. Outrun utilized Sega's superscaler technology to create a smooth, pseudo-3D racing experience that was leagues ahead of its contemporaries. The sprite scaling techniques gave players an unparalleled sense of speed and depth. It became one of the highest-grossing arcade games of 1986, with Sega manufacturing 20,000 arcade cabinets in the first year alone. The game's popularity led to numerous ports and sequels across various platforms.
A mysterious explosion destroys the Chernobyl research facility near Moscow. Lucifer Alpha, a powerful biological weapon under secret development there, is released into the atmosphere.
Snatcher. Set in the dystopian Neo-Kobe city of 2047, players take on the role of Gillian Seed, an amnesiac junker operative tasked with hunting down mysterious beings called Snatchers, humanoid robots that kill humans and take their place in society. Working alongside his robotic companion Metal Gear, Gillian must uncover not only the truth behind the Snatcher menace, but also the mysteries of his own forgotten past. The gameplay combines adventure elements with fast-paced shooting sequences. Players navigate through the world using a menu-driven interface, examining items, interviewing characters, and solving cases. During key moments, the game shifts to intense shooting segments where players must quickly eliminate threats before they can harm Gillian. Despite its limited initial release, Snatcher became a cult classic, praised for its deep narrative and atmospheric world-building. The game received multiple versions across different platforms, including a significant Sega CD release for North America and Europe in 1994. While it wasn't a commercial success in the West, Snatcher has been retrospectively acclaimed as one of the best cyberpunk games ever made, establishing many of the narrative themes Kojima would later explore in the Metal Gear series. Ultima 5 Warriors of Destiny. Released in 1988, Ultima 5 Warriors of Destiny is set in the land of Britannia. The game takes a darker turn from its predecessor, exploring themes of fundamentalism and moral absolutism. The story follows the Avatar's return to Britannia, where Lord British has disappeared and the tyrant Blackthorn now rules, enforcing a corrupted version of the 8 virtues. Players must navigate this oppressive world, battling the mysterious Shadow Lords and ultimately rescuing Lord British. Ultima 5 introduced several groundbreaking features. A day-night cycle with NPCs following daily schedules, adding depth to the game world. Enhanced dialogue system allowing for more detailed conversations with NPCs. Increased world interactivity, allowing players to manipulate their surroundings. An expansive game world, including an underworld area to explore. And lastly, a unique runic language for players to decipher, adding to the immersion. The game's combat system was improved, allowing diagonal attacks and introducing individual treasure drops from enemies. The magic system was also expanded, with spells arranged in 8 circles of increasing power. Bert. Created by Warren Davis, Jeff Lee, and David Thiel, Bert quickly became one of the most distinctive and beloved arcade games of the 1980s. The game's premise is deceptively simple. Players control Bert, an orange, nose-like creature who hops around a pyramid of cubes, changing their colors while avoiding various enemies. The isometric view of the pyramid created a pseudo-3D effect that set Bert apart from other arcade games. Bert's success was astronomical, selling around 25,000 arcade cabinets and becoming one of the highest-grossing arcade games of 1983. The game's unique character design, colorful graphics, and innovative gameplay mechanics earned it critical acclaim, with Electronic Games awarding it Most Innovative Coin-Op Game of the Year. As players progress, the difficulty increases with more complex color-changing patterns and faster, more aggressive enemies. The game's main antagonist, Coily the Snake, became particularly infamous for his relentless pursuit of Bert. The game's success resulted in extensive merchandising, with Bert's likeness appearing on various items including coloring books, sleeping bags, and board games. One of Bert's most memorable features was its unique sound design. The titular character's swearing, represented by synthesized gibberish and a speech balloon containing symbols, became an iconic element of the game. This quirky detail added personality to Bert and contributed to the game's lasting appeal. Frogger. Hop into one of arcade gaming's most beloved classics. Released in 1981 by Konami and distributed by Sega Gremlin, Frogger introduced players to the perilous journey of a brave amphibian trying to cross a busy highway and treacherous river. The game's premise is brilliantly simple. Guide your frog from the bottom of the screen to one of 5 lily pads at the top. However, this journey is anything but easy. Players must first navigate through lanes of speeding vehicles, then hop across moving logs and turtles while avoiding hungry alligators and other hazards. The road section required precise timing to avoid traffic, while the river portion demanded both timing and continuous movement since staying still meant certain doom. This dual challenge format created an addictive just one more try gameplay loop. The game's success was phenomenal. Frogger became one of the highest-grossing arcade games of 1981, with over 20,000 arcade units sold in North America alone. The game's popularity led to numerous ports across various platforms, including the highly successful Atari 2600 version that sold over 3 million copies. Technical achievements were impressive for 1981, featuring detailed sprites, smooth animations, and memorable sound effects. The game's audio design was particularly noteworthy, with its iconic doot-doot hopping sound and cheerful background music becoming instantly recognizable. And that wraps up Episode 1 of our exploration into the 25 best old-school games that defined the 80s. Wasn't that a trip? From dodging barrels in Donkey Kong to embarking on adventures in The Legend of Zelda, it's clear the 80s gave us a decade of pure gaming magic. These games didn't just fill our afternoons, they shaped entire generations of gamers, developers, and even pop culture. Before you head off to dust off your old console or try an emulator, make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Let us know in the comments which game on this list brought back the most memories, or which one we might have missed. And of course, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications, because there's more retro goodness in store for episode number 2. Thanks for hanging out with us, and remember, no matter how advanced gaming gets, the 80s will always hold a special place in our pixelated hearts. Game on!